Hey, what's up guys? This is Lizzy Jane and I am here doing a quick track breakdown on Dance, my new collaboration with Prismatic that just dropped on Excision's new label, Subsidia Records. First off, thank you guys so much for streaming the song if you have already. It's on all major streaming platforms. I'll have the link below if you want to check it out after viewing this video. I believe we are almost at 30K streams, so thank you so much for the support, and I really hope if you're new to discovering my music or Prismatic's music that you stick around and check out some of our other tracks. But yeah, let's just dive into it. Originally, I sent the project to Prismatic as a very old project that I had originally sang on, and it was about a year old, and we kind of just started sending it back and forth. It was a very quick collaboration, super 50-50. I'm really going to focus on vocal processing today. If you want to focus on more drop elements, I would recommend going below to the description and checking out his breakdown video as well, even though I'll touch on some points here and there. First off, you can see organization, super important, always. We're going to just dive right in. I'll just kind of play a brief overview really quick of the track if you haven't heard it before, and then we'll start breaking some things down. Sick. Okay, so that was pretty much the first break to build throughout the first drop. But what I really wanted to focus on today were the synths and the vocals, which is really part of the song that really never changed once I wrote it a year plus ago. So here we go. Just on the vocal group, of course, you have it organized. I'm going to have my main vocals. I'm just going to duplicate those twice, and a lot of the time to create an effect, especially if you're working with raw vocals, is to pan 100% or 50% to the left and 50 to the right. So you're really creating this all across the board stereo mono consciousness sound. So when you're mixing that voice, it's really easy to have it poke through the mix and be, you know, really relevant and up in your face, because a lot of the times the vocals are what drive the song in combination with, you know, the effects and the other writing as it builds up into the drop. I just have a simple EQ8. I've got a cut over here. I've got a cut at about 100 hertz. I really could cut that a little bit higher. However, I wanted to give more room for the vocals to breathe. And the reason why I'm cutting that low is to allow the sub and some of the bass sounds and risers to come through. So the harsh frequencies with the vocals aren't, you know, going into that 0 to 100K hertz range at all whatsoever. Mainly I just use the EQ8 from Ableton stock, as well as a Pro Q3 fab filter. That's like my go-to EQ all the time. And we'll just kind of dive in here. Let me solo this. We're gonna run this on a loop, and we will start to evaluate these vocals. And I'll just do a short breakdown of kind of how I processed them and EQ'd them. All right. So you'll hear that main vocal. I'm just trying to dance. So the way that we decided to sidechain here was by having a ghost sidechain up here. All I do personally is I take literally the down transient. Look how small. It's like 17 point whatever tenth of 1 beat of the 17th bar. And I just kind of put that white noise at the down transient where the kick and the snare is going to be. Now I use an LFO tool or a volume shaper. However, for this song, the method that we used for sidechaining worked really well with the vocals. And a lot of the times too, I will sidechain my vocals to my synths or parts of the basses and the drops just to allow those drums and certain elements of, our synthesizers or bass sounds really poke through. All right, so I unfroze the main vocal and we'll just kind of take a look in. So first I honestly loaded the preset from the vocal lead. Keep in mind the reason why I don't have a harsh low cut here is because I already have it on the group. So it's isolating that already. And one thing I'll do is a lot of times I don't EQ first, but I'm always going to make sure that I have an EQ last. And why that is so important is because every time that you decide to use a plugin, it could potentially kind of cook up some harsh frequencies that were not previously there before you EQ'd the track to begin with. So if you've got a sample or a piece of MIDI that you've decided to freeze and bounce to audio, and you can already hear some of the kind of harsh frequencies poking through, definitely throw an EQ on there first just to make your job easier. And kind of like a life hack with Pro Q3, if your ear is kind of still getting used to hearing sounds for what they are and you don't have a very trained ear in production or hearing those harsh frequencies, Pro Q3 has this really awesome waveform analyzer that I will display right here. I'm just trying to dance. So right there, it's really just pointing out the harsh frequencies, and I think that is so dope. And you literally use it in everything on almost every track that's giving me a problem to help with my mix downs. Because again, even though it may take out some of the transients of the sound within the individual track, the goal overall is to mix with all of the other elements on, because you want it to sound good cohesively together. And this tool is something I highly recommend. Not sponsored by them, not anything by them. It's just something that's really personally helped me train my ear to start developing hearing frequencies to certain notes identified, as well as pointing out harsh frequencies. All right, sweet. So I'm using a Kenny Beats rack right here. Of course, every rack originally is designed for a sound or a song. And so when I get racks from other artists, I understand that this rack wasn't designed for the song that I'm producing or working on. It was designed for the song that producer was producing at the time. So it's really helpful, and I built racks along the way through my production journey. But I found some really great Kenny Beats racks that help me with vocal processing, especially if I'm working with my own vocals. And yeah, so I use this for vocal tracking. Really, we just have a nice little gate on it. That's to help with the compression. We have an EQ, de-esser that's going to help with our T's and our S's. Super, super, super important, especially if you don't have the best quality mic. I personally go to a studio to record my own vocals. However, if you're at home, always make sure you have a de-esser on. The Ableton stock de-esser is wonderful. But, there are other plugins that can do the same thing if you want to outsource to other gear. But yeah, I have a lot of this stuff on 100%. I have the threshold down to negative 28.1. My ratio up on this limiter. And then where that's just for tracking. So if I were to take all of these plugins off here, I have a reverb, CLA vocals mono stereo by Waves, which is just godsend because it really, really helps your voice kind of kick it up a few decibels without becoming super, super compressed or anything like that. It really helps me when I'm doing my radio shows or my podcasts to just easily throw on there. I know what I need to do preset wise and trigger wise to make my voice really poke through, and you'll hear the difference here. So this is my raw vocal. Oh, sorry, my bad. Main vocal. I'm just trying to dance. So now we're going to start to add these plugins back. All right, cool. So let me just solo this guy to make sure. I'm just trying to dance. And this is without the CLA. I'm just trying to dance. I'm just trying to dance. With the CLA vocals. I'm just trying to dance. I'm just trying to dance. Okay, 6. So pretty much on this guy, I always use Start Me Up. It's literally a preset that they have in there. It's phenomenal, clean. You can see here, it's got all of really the main triggers that would normally be in a lot of vocal infused plugins. You have your compression, bass, treble, reverb, delay, pitch. I really didn't mess with the plugin or with the preset too much. I just did some things that were a little bit of a better decision for my personal voice. And yeah, and then I put a plugin or I put an EQ right after. Fab filter. Same thing. Remember, we have that 100 cut EQ on our group. So that's why I'm not doing a low cut throughout these Pro Q3 EQs. And then I definitely want to add some Valhalla Room. Valhalla Room and Valhalla Vintage are definitely my favorite reverb-based plugins for vocals and other, synth elements. And then I added another Pro Q3. Something that I tend to do a lot just to help create more of a flow or full balanced effect from vocals is like I'll do this here and I'll insert an audio track. And I will come to this resampling here. I'm going to solo this. So pretty much resampling, so I can choose where it's coming from. I can route the tracks here, or even just simpler if you just want to make it a little bit of a quicker process. A lot of times I'll come here with the Valhalla. I'm going to remember I was at 5.4% wet there. Again, very, very small, but that's also because we're using it on the main vocal. So it's important for it not to be completely reverbed out. But a lot of times to create the reverb tails, I'll take this mix all the way up. And then I've got these 2 tracks soloed. This is resampling. This is record enabled. And we record this vocal with full reverb. And you can hear that side chain. Like, I bet you I could just leave that right there, take it down a few decibels, throw an EQ on there for sure. Because of all that reverb, it might have like some harsh frequencies. Yeah. So I'm not going to waste too much time on this, but I'm going to make these guys dynamic. And I'm going to take this, down in decibel. And then I'm going to make sure I come back here. And we're back at 5.4. Great. Sweet. So now we just have another layer, and that's really going to help make everything sound way fuller. In addition to panning my main vocal 100% left, 100% right. On Ableton, it says 50 left, 50 right. Adds up to 100. There you go. So yes. I'm just trying to dance. I'm just trying to dance. I'm just trying to dance. So then going into our build, I really just took the ooze and the ad-libs and started to just like mess around with them. And then I have this No Mana little sample in the back, panning left to right. I originally had an auto pan on it. Before I bounced down the track, I freezed it and I flattened it. I had the auto pan, which is a super cool trick where you can just kind of put this auto pan on here. And I'll show you guys really quick. Oh, my bad. Oh, it's already on there. Cool. So you'll see this. Got the auto pan, and another EQ. I'm really cutting almost to 1K frequencies because there's no reason that any of that vocal should be dipping down beneath the 800, hertz line. It's cool. It just adds effect. It's really quiet. A lot of it is just about creating that movement that's going to drive the build into like a really epic drop. And then I've got these guys here. Just vocal chops. If I'm using, you might as well use the vocal you're using for the main vocal to do those vocal chops to keep that consistency, just like you were if you were going to use, bass sounds over and over again and change something macro-wise or LFO-wise within the actual patch. It's all about keeping the consistency, but changing it and introducing new minimal elements to make it more interesting. I'm going to just briefly touch on the synths. All right. All of these are frozen. Originally were MIDI. The song is in the key of F minor. Super important to always know what key you're writing in. These chords would not sound half as good if I was just kind of going with my ear to make it sound good. I'm sure I would figure it out, but you may not be 100% right. If you just took the time to look up F minor scale on Google or your phone, it would 100% be worth it if you're a beginning producer to learn, basic music theory knowledge, learn the circle of fifths. A lot of stuff go hand in hand with mixing key, which is what a lot of DJs use while pairing their songs together. And just having that basic knowledge is definitely beneficial in the long run. Here we just have some mid-side EQs, basic synth processing, OTT, we have limiter and another EQ, and our sidechain. This was auto-filtered in. There you go. You can see we actually did a high-pass, low-pass automation. A lot of these guys were just for layers. You'll see to the right that a lot of these were panned to create a wider effect before the vocals came in. And without looking at the MIDI, I know that I followed, if any of you guys play instruments, a lot of typical average chord progressions are 1-4-5, 1-4-7. That's taking the different inversions of the chords. So this is following a 1-4-5, 1-4-7 progression within the key of F minor. It just builds for a little bit of movement. And on these guys, we basically had little to no processing, just stuff, maybe some stereo imagers, and making sure we had EQs. We had some saturators and limiters on some of the chords, but we just wanted to make sure that they were all sitting in their correct place on the sound spectrum to create that very full kind of kick alongside the voice. And we straight off brought in a full kind of drum percussion groove, so it was important that everything worked really cohesively together. Nice and simple. Cool. I had my hats panned, EQs, all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to start doing more of this on YouTube as well as my Patreon, which will be linked below. I may even do another YouTube tutorial breaking down the drop. If you want to see things strictly based on the drop, head over to the link below and check out Prismatic's video breakdown on how he contributed to the track. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for streaming our new single Dance on Subsidia Records. If you haven't already, please check it out below. Shoot me a follow and I will see you next time. Thank you guys so much. My name's Lizzy Jane. Have a good one.